Okay, good day everyone. So now we will introduce to you one of the methods that can be applied during the language teaching and learning process. So this method is called the total physical response or the TPR. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this meeting, the speakers or the reporters are expected to tackle about the definition of total physical response, its importance, the disadvantages, and some examples of the TPR. Now, what is TPR method? Next slide, please. Okay, so the total physical response is a method in language teaching which is based on the coordination of speech and action. So basically, ang kaninga method, it works by having the learners do what the teachers tell them to do or having the learners respond to simple commands such as stand up, sit down, close your book, open the window, raise your hand, put it down, and etc. So this stresses the importance of oral comprehension. So when we say oral, A-U-R-A-L, oral comprehension, it simply refers to the skill of listening, understanding, and responding in an appropriate way. So in this method, the students are expected to listen and perform what the teacher says. So if, for example, the students were told to close the door, then they are expected to do so. And also, this method is an example of the comprehension approach to language teaching, mainly because it aids students to demonstrate their understanding, but it does not force them to speak if they are not yet ready. But instead, it is encouraged to do the action that is being commanded or that is being told to them. So, like what I've said earlier, no, the students will listen to what the teacher would say, and they are expected to have a physical response. So, when we say physical response, it involves movement. Okay. Now let's proceed to the proponent of this method. Next slide, please. Okay, so who is the proponent of total physical response? So this language teaching method, the TPR, was developed by James Asher. So he was a professor emeritus of psychology at San Jose State University, the first public institution of higher learning in California founded in 1857. So he developed the TPR method as a result of his observation of the language development of young children. So when Asher developed this method, he believed that the best way for students to learn an additional language was be involved in activities that promoted listening and acting out based on what they heard. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, now let's move on to the key components of TPR. First, we have the use of movement as memory enhancer. So if we apply or use this method in teaching language, then we should create activities that allow students to move. Ang simple example ani is katong my toes, my knees, my shoulder, my head nga kanta, which is giapilan siya og action as you sing the entire song. So in that way, dali ra mahinumduman sa usa ka student ang parts sa body because it was accompanied by physical movement. The second one is the use of imperatives as medium of instruction. So this means that the teacher can start the lesson by giving the learners some command. It is because it is an easy way to get them to move and to loosen up. So the physical response of the children implies that a direction or instruction is under. So instruction is understood. So of course, if we should start, of course, we should start from simple instructions before we proceed to complex one. So we can start by giving simple directions such as walk, sit, hold, turn left, stand, and many more. So if the students already master the basics, then we can proceed on giving them complex instructions. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's talk about the role of learners and a teacher in TPR method. So the learner's primary role in this method is to be the listener and the performer. They have to listen attentively and respond physically to commands given by the teacher. So the students have to do certain actions following the teacher's instruction. So sa akong ginaingon kanina, no, if they were told to arrange the chairs properly, then they are expected to do so. So again, the learners, they are the listener, imitator, or a performer. So the teacher's role, on the other hand, they are the teacher's role is to direct and be an active organizer in this method. So it says here that the teachers play an active and direct role in total physical response. So the instructor is the director of the stage play in which the students are the actors. So basically, the teachers are the teachers are like the master of the entire program because she will be the one to decide and prepare what commands to give and what actions for the students to perform. So in order to effectively portray the role, the teacher should be organized and well prepared. So before she entered the classroom, dapat naka-ready na ang sequence sa iyang mga commands or sa mga instructions na iyang i-deliver sa mga students. And also, the role of the teacher is to provide feedback to the students' performance. Next slide, please.
Learn in one of these various techniques is total physical response method, which involves students acting out the meaning of a specific word or phrase you're teaching them. So probably you're familiar with the term, but you might not be aware of the some learn. So first, promotes listening. So TPR in education involves student listening to the teachers. Obviously, class in general should involve listening, but the TPR teaching need attention. We don't have to be worried, although the um, demand sounds forceful, but TPR is a fun activity. So the demand comes from the act of students will have to do the action corresponding to the words or phrases the teacher says. So TPR teaching is a simple way to involve students in the lesson instead of letting them daydream during the class. Next is the boost engagement. So asking for students' attention is the one thing, but retaining is it another. So luckily, TPR is an effective strategy for engaging the students. So as we touched on above, TPR teaching asks students to listen attentively to the teacher so they can carry out motions corresponding with the key vocabulary words and phrases. So if you are simply teaching by having the students sit and listen to your explanation vocabulary, although they may listen initially, and you could lose their attention pretty quickly. So by asking the students to act out vocabulary over the course of the activity, you involve them in the lesson in more impactful way. So memorization is a key when learning new language to the movement of the TPR method that help with the exact principles. Next is the strengthens comprehension. So at the core of the TPR's desire to help students better understand of what you are teaching them. So TPR or total physical response is less about pronunciation and spelling than it is because comprehending what the word means. So through comprehension of what the word means act as a great educational foundation before you before you get into the more technical side of new vocabulary or pronunciation and the spelling. So this concept is a great tool for helping for young students to learn. And also, total physical response is an activity that teachers can easily integrate into their daily activities. Next is TPR is stress reduction. So one of the greatest benefits of TPR is stress reduction. In fact, according to James Asher, Dr. James Asher calls it is the stress free method. Is that because the students are not expected to speak? Hence, there is no pressure at all. The silent period is greatly encouraged because it is here that the learner is building their own understanding of the language, and also it makes the processes extremely enjoyable. Next slide, please. So next is TPR can be applied to any level of proficiency. So even though be it even though in the high or low levels of proficiency, the learner need not to feel embarrassed about their levels for not being able to comprehend or respond. If a learner is unable to comprehend at the first attempt, so they can also watch and imitate their teaching again. They can imitate their teacher again. Next is consistent and persistent. So total physical response is not something that you can implement a handful of times in a class. So it's something that has to be consistent and persistent across all your classroom with all your students as the way to teach online effectively. Next is actively use both the left and the right side of their brain. So simultaneously, it is because um, while learning a language in traditional schooling, a student would not only be using the left hemisphere of their brains as they formally instructed on the language. So this means that the right hemisphere of their brain is not used at all. So total physical response method of teaching changes this and enable the student to simultaneously use the both the left and right hemisphere of their brain to learn a language in a classroom. So this is done by incorporating movements into the lessons to ensure that both hemisphere of the brain are working. So for example, teachers who use the TPR method of teaching would not only teach the students the word, but also have them to wave their hands while repeating the word. Next, the last is it sharpens students' listening skills. So this also put the focus on listening to the student. So the learner has to constantly listen to the teacher who'll be modeling the pronunciation of the word or vocabulary item. So this enhances their listening capabilities and their search in these skills of over a period of time. So with no focus on speaking and a lot of mimicking while the teacher does and repeating what the teacher speaks, the learners gradually gains confidence in constructing their own language skills. So this also makes the process very gratifying both for the teachers and surely for the learners. So that's all. Mga day.
So, all right. Good day, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
All right. So, in this part of our lessons, I am going to discuss the disadvantages of total physical response, or TPR. It is not undeniable that total physical response, or TPR, is a great method in teaching students. And yes, it is extremely important, but then it has also its disadvantages. So the following are some disadvantages of TPR. We have here TPR isn't really creative. TPR is extremely limited, challenging for a shy student, and overusing TPR causes someone easily bored. So let's go back to the first disadvantages of TPR. TPR isn't really creative. TPR doesn't really allow the learners to impress themselves in a creative way, which is a major setback. Since TPR only allows speech and actions or doing mimics, students are not given the opportunity to express their own views and thoughts in a creative way since the learners only follows what the teachers or the facilitator instructs them to do. Okay, right. So let's have the second disadvantages of total physical response. That is, it is extremely limited. Not everything can be explained through TPR. Abstract concepts may prove troublesome for learners to grasp if explained only through the usage of total physical response. Since TPR is made up of mainly of commands, it tends to neglect narrative descriptions and conversation forms of language. It can be ineffective if the teacher uses it for a long period of time without switching it with another activities that would help them teach the target language. Yes, it is limited since everything cannot be explained with this method. Okay, so let's have the third advantages of total physical response. That is, TPR can be challenging for a shy students. All right, so we all know that in the learning process or in the learning environment, we have diverse students. So, encouraging students with diverse needs to participate can be tough if they are shy or introverted person. Since TPR involves speech and actions, it will be difficult for shy students to perform well in class or to perform comfortably inside the classroom. TPR best suits for kinesthetic learners. So when we say of kinesthetic learners, these are learners who respond well to physical activities, okay? They are active in performing physical activities, and also TPR only suits for visual learners. So when we say of visual learners, these are learners who learn best with visual cues where teacher present them images or pictures. Okay, so now let's go to the last disadvantages of TPR. So we have here overusing TPR causes someone easily bored. All right. Since we are future educators, teaching elementary students are very challenging, right? So young learners here have short span of interest. All right. So if teachers keep on repeating this method, they used to they use TPR for a very long time as a means of instructions in the classroom and in the learning process. It will become boring since students are familiar with these methods. So, as elementary teacher and as future educator, we must be creative in imparting lessons with our learners. We can incorporate TPR or the total physical response with other learning methods by this we can assure that we can hold the interest of our learners until the end of the discussions or until the entire quarter. So it is very important that we can gain the interest of our learners, because if we gain their interest, we can assure that they are interested in learning. So, all right. So, that's all for the disadvantages of TPR or total physical response. All right. So, let's go now to the next reporter.
Okay, so before we end, for you to better understand the TPR method or the total physical response method, we will have a short demonstration applying this method, the TPR method, in which teaching vocabulary words to the pupils. All right, so good morning, class.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
ma'am.
So,
ma'am.
how are you today?
We are doing
We're
good.
good, ma'am. Okay, that's great. So for today, we're going to learn some new words. Are you excited, class?
Yes, mom, we are excited. And
Okay, that's great. So, class, all you have to do is to listen to me and repeat on what I am doing. Okay?
okay, ma'am.
Okay, so now for the first word, we have hot. Hot.
Hot, hot,
Okay, repeat after me. Hot.
hot,
Okay, so do this action, class. Hot.
hot,
Hot.
Okay, so second one, cold. Cold.
cold,
Cold.
cold,
Okay, so and the last word, class, we will have sleepy.
sleepy,
Sleep.
Again, sleepy.
Sleep.
sleepy.
Alright, so class, now class, I want you to do the action and I will say the word. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so sleepy. Okay, let me see. All right, very good. Sleepy ng huyab. Okay, next one. Hot. Okay, very good. The maypay. Hot. And now for the last one. Cold.
Cold,
Okay, gigapos.
Cold.
Very
cold,
good.
cold.
Cold. So, mo na siya class no. Ang ato na learn karon is a word na hot, cold, and sleepy. All right, so that's the example of TPR method. No, the teacher says the word with action and the students listen to the teachers and do the same kung unsa ang gibuhat ni teacher. So, the advantage of this TPR method, no, especially in teaching vocabulary words, is that ang students, no, kay dali sila makasabot why man because ang teacher no dili lang kay gisayran niya or gisultiran yung word na hot but also sad iya sang gikuanan og with action. So mas nakatabang no nga si teacher kay nagpay-pay-pay-pay sa just ang kalingon so ang students no nakasabot day nga the word hot di ay it means kanang init tungod sa gibuhat ni teacher nga namaypay sa kagalingon. The word cold is kanang tugnaw because si teacher iyang gipakita nga si teacher kanang gigakos niya ang kagalingon niya siya nagkurog-kurog. And the word sleepy is kanang katulgon sila. So muna ang advantage sa TPR method. So, before we end this report, allow me to say that successful learning and skill development of the learners roots with a great teacher, and a great teacher knows what are the appropriate method to use in teaching. All right, so this is the end of our report. I hope you will learn something and good day and God bless. So thank you for listening.